Welcome to the Kentucky Bourbon Traveler. Today we're headed to the 2018 Bardstown, Kentucky Bourbon Festival. We'll also be reviewing Wild Turkey's Russell's Reserve Rye Whiskey. And we'll have a recipe for chocolate mint julep cake. Hi, thanks for joining us. I'm Kent, Louisville, Kentucky. We're heading down to Bardstown, Kentucky today to show you around Kentucky's biggest weekend for bourbon, the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. Once a year in mid-September, bourbon fans get together, go to parties, tasting events, and at the end have a fair known as the Kentucky Bourbon Festival.
When you started out and nothing and you found a joy, selling man. And when your friends and you can cry, slap you on the back and say, please.
We're at the Spirit Garden, where you can get a bourbon to compare with other major distillers. There's all kinds of car shows and live entertainment by different bands all weekend. Here you can see the bourbon and other food in craft tents. The craft tents offer everything from barrels, furniture, jewelry, to bar towels, and of course tasting flights made from bourbon barrels. Of course, the big distilleries have built elaborate wood buildings to offer glassware like Glencairn tasting glasses, bourbon lids, and t-shirts. You can watch the art of hand-making bourbon barrels like this independent stave exhibition, a big crowd pleaser. Or just go across the fence and go to a car show. We were excited to meet Wild Turkey's Bourbon Hall of Famer and Master Distiller Jimmy Russell and his wife Jaretta. Plan a trip to the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. You'll be glad you did. Now we're heading back to Lawrenceburg, Kentucky's Wild Turkey Distillery. It's located on Wild Turkey Hill above the Salt River. Today we're profiling Wild Turkey's Russell Reserve 6-year Kentucky Straight Rye Whiskey, 90 proof. The father and son team of the Russells provide 100 years of distilling experience, and the Hall of Fame Master Distiller Jimmy has assured that Wild Turkey has some of the best spirits in bourbon country. Wild Turkey's rick houses for aging are multi-story, old school, and the design used going back into the last century. Expert aging makes an extraordinary rye. Wild Turkey Distillery offers tours with tastings and are located an hour southeast of Louisville, Kentucky. Wild Turkey's Russell Reserve Rye Kentucky Straight Whiskey, 90 proof, was bought for $39 here in Kentucky. This 6-year-old rye with the two master distillers' name on it, Jimmy and Andy Russell, is not easy to find, but it's stocked by the Wines and More liquor store chain here in Louisville. The majority of bourbon distilleries have a rye whiskey. And at the Wild Turkey Distillery, we tasted it and looked at each other and said, that's wonderful. And that's why, instead of a bourbon, we're covering this rye this week. It's a sweet and delicious, balanced rye drinking whiskey with a little honey taste. Not an overwhelmingly muted peppery spice, and leaves a butterscotch finish in your mouth. It has a small burn or Kentucky hug when it goes down, but it's really pretty understated. Oak highlights aren't noticeable, and it has between a thin and a medium mouthfeel. Bristol's 6-year rye has an ingredient list or mash bill of 37% corn, 51% rye, and 12% malted barley. Since bourbon whiskey must have 51% corn, this is a rye at 37% corn. The new white oak barrels used to age the rye are charred or burned to a number 4 alligator char. Next, Christiana is going to show us how to make a chocolate mint julep cake. I've already had it. Go on, you guys. Give up your bourbon. It's as good in food as it is to drink.
Hello, I'm Christiane from Würzburg, Germany, and today we're gonna make a mint julep cake. And the first thing we have to do is there's 2 types of chocolate chips in this cake. There's mint chocolate chips and Belgian dark chocolate chips. We are going to melt the dark chocolate chips, bourbon and butter in a microwave until it's smooth, kind of saucy. After we melted the chocolate, butter and bourbon in a microwave, it's really saucy. Then we add sugar, white sugar, mix it. Then we add brown sugar. And then we add eggs. And we mix this together very well. After you have it mixed together, nice incorporated, then we're going to go to the dry ingredients, and we use flour, baking soda and baking powder, and add the cocoa with it and kind of stir that around too. Now we're taking half of the wet ingredients and put it in our mixing bowl. And take half of our dry ingredients and put it in a mixing bowl. And stir. And then we take in the rest of the dry ingredients, the wet ingredients with the dry ingredients. You just don't want to pour all the wet and the dry together at once. It's harder to mix. Now, after we stirred all the ingredients together and it's nice and smooth, we put it in a buttered and floured loaf pan and then add it in a preheated oven on 350 for 1 hour. Now our wonderful chocolate cake is out of the oven and ready to put bourbon sauce on. But this is what we do. We use butter, bourbon and sugar, and we put it on medium heat and keep on stirring, because you can't stop stirring until it cooks for about 5 minutes. So after we cooked our bourbon and butter over the stove, we're gonna add the remaining bourbon into the pot and simple syrup. Make several holes. Now we take our wonderful smelling bourbon sauce and we pour it over the cake. Before you let the cake sit for an hour, you want to weigh the cake down. So I used another loaf pan, covered the chocolate cake with the sauce, set it on top, and to weigh it down, I'm using a wonderful rye whiskey today. So now, after an hour, as you can see, all the wonderful bourbon sauce is absorbed by our chocolate cake. We turn the cake over on a nice plate, and now we get the last thing is our chocolate mint glaze. So you can find this in local stores. It's dark chocolate mint morsels. I add them in a double broiler. Then I add about 1/4 cup of golf wax edible shavings. And as soon as the water starts boiling on the bottom in the double broiler, I melt the chocolate down, which is going to be our glaze, our mint glaze over our mint julep cake. So after you melt your chocolate, make sure you constantly stir so it's nice, runny and liquidy, because if you stop stirring, the chocolate will not do very well. So we're using this wonderful mint chocolate sauce and start pouring it over the cake to glaze the cake with. For your cake, you're gonna smooth it nicely out and get the chocolate everywhere on the cake. And then you put it in the refrigerator and let the chocolate settle. Enjoy the mint julep cake garnished with fresh mint and chocolate shavings.
Kentucky Bourbon Traveler is proud to be a member of the Stave and Thief Society Bourbon Certification Program. Last year, the Kentucky Distillers Association announced the official bourbon education program, the Stave and Thief Society. It's the official bourbon education course endorsed by master distillers and 33 distillers in Kentucky. If you enjoy getting your bourbon certificate online, even in Europe and Canada, contact Kristen Head at 502-266-7377 or go online, registrar at staveandthief.com. Kentucky Bourbon Traveler.